here. Tonight we're gonna finish up our homemade pretzels and our beef bourguignon. And so let's just dive right in. For our pretzels, because we'll have to dip them in a baking soda bag. My husband's making funny hand pictures over there making me laugh. So I have my water, it's heating up, and I'm putting some baking soda in. This is gonna give it the nice shell on our pretzels. They're not gonna be hard pretzels. They're going to be like American soft, like Annie Ann's pretzels or Pretzel Times. But you need to do them in a baking soda bath. You'll boil them in it for just 30 seconds each. And now I'm gonna work on our potatoes. We're gonna do a roasted Parmesan, like smashed potato. So what I'm going to do is just kind of cut each one of my potatoes into fourths, and I'm gonna boil them for a little bit until they're soft, and then I will take them out and I will smash them on like a baking sheet, pour some butter and garlic, salt, and Parmesan over it, and roast those in the oven for a few minutes to get a nice crisp on them. So we're just quartering them. If you have a bigger one, you might need to do it into 6. So here's a bigger one, and I'll do that guy into 6. Just because I want all the potatoes to be about the exact same size so that they all cook about evenly. And we'll also make roasted green beans with onions to pair with our beef bourguignon and homemade pretzels. Okay. Last guy, he's going in there after this one. And these are just russet potatoes. And I'll have them, and they're just gonna boil on high. And now we will work on our pretzels. So I had my dough proofing in the oven earlier. It's been proofing for about 2 hours. It's doubled in size. It's much bigger and poofier than it was. And I'm also gonna take out a really big baking sheet because I'm gonna roll my pretzels out and then I'm gonna lay them on here. Let me get, and I always bake mine on parchment paper. They just, they come off really easy, better than greasing. So I have them just prepping my area, and then we'll flip this dough out.
You just got a comment that someone loves your kitchen.
Oh, thank you. We remodeled it like a year and a half ago. We woke up the day before school started to flooding, and a pipe burst behind the tile and the cabinets, and it was just flooding out. And so we remodeled last year, and I designed it all myself. So I was pretty happy how it turned out. So I'm gonna take my pretzel dough, and I'm just gonna split it in half for right now. Then I'm gonna try to make it even. And I'm gonna do 4 for each one so that we'll have 16 pretzels at the end. And I try to make my dough all to be about the same size, so my pretzels all turn out to be the same size. And I'm gonna do it with this guy too, just kind of stretch them out. And then I'll cut each one in half, and then half and half. That way I can have about 4 equal pieces of dough. And this, if you've never used one of these before, this is like a pastry cutter. It just works really great for cutting through dough and scraping. That's really all it does, but it works great. And then for our pretzels, I don't really do the traditional pretzel roll shape, only because I'm always trying to whip these out really quick. And sometimes I do a double batch. This is a single batch. But I just kind of do a twirl and I pull through. And so it's more like a pretzel roll. Instead of trying to make it perfect. I used to do them perfect, and then I realized it took too much time. So to me, that's where I cut my corners. But I kind of roll them out long, and then you just kind of twirl it around and then tuck it through. And that way they'll stay together and they'll poof up into a nice little pretzel roll. But they're pretty easy to go through. The first time I made these, it took me forever, just because like anytime you try a new recipe, it's gonna take you so much longer than once you've mastered it. But now I've gotten really proficient on it that it doesn't take me long to whip these guys out. And sometimes I'll have my kids or my husband help with the rolling part. But their rolling isn't as good. But they have fun with it. There we go. And this is just a basic dough. Like we used, I'm trying to think, about 4 cups of bread flour. It was 1.5 cups of warm water, a tablespoon of yeast, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and about a tablespoon of salt, and a 1/4 of a cup of melted butter.
We got a question of like, where do you work? If they mean where we're located, but otherwise consultant work at home.
Yes, I have my doctorate in educational leadership. I got it from Vanderbilt University. And so I do a lot of educational consulting on my off time. That allows me to stay home with my little ones and focus on them for right now. Just because I actually worked a lot with my older ones. I have 5 kids. And when I had my 4th, I wanted to stay home and be with them. And so I just took a pause on my career to stay home with them. But I do some consulting work and whatnot. I know I always say, I had my sister-in-law once told me that I took the most difficult path to unemployment because I have 2 bachelor's degrees, I have a master's degree, and I have my doctorate. So I have a lot of education. There we go, doing my little flip through.
Yeah. There's a teacher's assistant that's watching.
Nice. I worked at an all-inclusive preschool/lab school, so I worked with both college students and preschool children with disabilities, and I absolutely loved my job. I loved teaching, but after a while I was like, oh, I just need to be home with my babies for a little bit, and the fact that childcare costs an arm and a leg.
You got to request the recipe for the ranch dressing from last night.
Oh, from last night. So it is a cup of sour cream and a cup of half and half, and then a packet of ranch dressing, and then I'll add a pinch of garlic salt to that just to make it a little bit saltier. But that is what it is. It's really simple, but it's different than the recipe is on like the back of it. I think they use mayonnaise, but I'm not a big fan of mayonnaise in my ranch dressing. I think it's too slimy. There we go. We'll roll this guy out and twirl and pull through. So they may not be the most picture perfect, but they taste amazing. This is one of my family's favorite rolls type things that I make. And then the best thing is you have to have pretzel salt. So this is like, that makes it in. You'll like rub them with some warm butter at the end, and you dip them in the like butter, and then you sprinkle the salt over. Sometimes I'll do like half with pretzel salt and half with cinnamon sugar, so they're like a dessert pretzel. Okay, this guy is kind of wonky over here. And a twirl, and we'll pull through. Gotta rearrange. Make sure I can fit this guy on here. Perfect. And this is not a standard baking sheet. This is like a 1.5 baking sheet, which fits the full oven. And when you have a big family like I do, the bigger the baking sheet, the better. Okay, once this gets to a rolling boil, what we do is we take our our pretzels, and we're gonna put them in the boiling water for about 30 seconds, and then we transfer them out. Let me wash my hands since they're a little oily from the dough. There we go. Perfect. And while we're waiting for our water to get to a boil, because you need to have a boil, I'm going to start prepping some of my other ingredients. So I'm going to chop up 1 yellow onion. This is going to be for my green beans and onions. I roast them with just olive oil and black pepper, but they're just so delicious, and it's such an easy way to cook fresh green beans. I'm not a big fan of steaming green beans or whatnot. The only vegetable that I like steamed for the most part is broccoli. So these are an easy way to cook them that doesn't involve steaming them. So let's get out my baking sheet, and I'm gonna cut them long-wise. So I want them to be, when they're broken apart, to be like this. Because my green beans are long, I want my onions long. And they're gonna, when the heat of the oven, they'll caramelize up nicely. Perfect. Put those out there. Get this guy chopped up. Nice. I'll spread him out, and then I'm gonna get my green beans. And you'll have to use fresh. You can't use frozen for this. Frozen will just kind of lead to mushy roasted green beans. And I don't worry too much about, making sure I get all, saving as much. I just kind of do a rough cut to get the ends off, because those don't roast up well. They're always really chewy and tough. So I just kind of chop those tips off, and then I'll push the other way, try to get them all back to here, and then chop. And that way you can get some of those tough ones. You can also buy in you can buy the broccoli and other pre-washed produce that's chopped. You can buy rinsed and chopped green beans if you want. These were just on sale, so it takes me an extra few minutes, but I'll chop them up myself. You could also take the laborious time process of hand snapping, which for me, when I'm cooking dinner, I'm always trying to get it out as fast as I can. So I might cut corners in the sense of I might lose more of my green bean, but it gets it done quicker. Perfect. And get these chopped up. It looks like my water over there is starting to come to a good boil, which is what we want, because you need your water hot and boiling when you dip each pretzel in, because that's what's gonna cook it on the outside. It's gonna give it that nice shiny coating. Think of like a bagel. Bagels are boiled a lot longer than these pretzels, but that's how they get that nice chewy outer shell, is the length of boiling them. Let's get these chopped up. We've got a couple of funny ones right here. There we go. Perfect. And do a flip. And my dog over there is snoring so loud. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but she is snoring very loud. Perfect. And I got a little piece. I don't want to get that off. I'll have a few more of these, and then what we'll do is we will start dipping our pretzels in, and then we'll set our oven. You cook these the pretzels on really high heat. You want to cook them at 450, but you cook them for a very short period of time. You only cook them for 7 minutes, but the high heat, it just helps them puff up really nice and cooks them all the way through. But that's the trick, high heat and for a short period of time. Just a few more green beans. There we go. I'll get these guys. I always look for, when I'm meal planning, I always look for what is on sale and in season. In-season vegetables, of course, taste the best, and then I just buy whatever's on sale, because we do have to feed a small army here. Tonight we're cooking for 9, because it's we'll have my kids, and my husband and I, plus my parents. Okay, we've got all of these chopped up. Let's come over to our pretzels. What you're gonna wanna use for this is a slotted spoon. This allows the water to cascade off. And what I'm gonna do is I just simply drop them in. And if you're a little bit nervous around the water, as long as you drop them in carefully, they won't splash. And then you just let them cook on one side, boil on one side. I let that for about 15-20 seconds, and then I'll go through and I'm just gonna flip them over just like that, because you see the tops of them, they float, so they don't boil. So you want to just make sure you got an even boil all the way through. This is going to give you that really nice chewy crust on our pretzels.
What are you cooking tonight?
I'm doing beef bourguignon with smashed Parmesan potatoes and homemade pretzels and roasted green beans. Put these guys out, and we'll drop in our next set. There we go. And what I'm boiling them in is water with baking soda. The baking soda, like traditional pretzels, are boiled in lye, which gives them that really hard, crusty shell. I don't like to work with lye, A, because if you mess up, you can get a chemical burn from it. But, and B, it's just who has lye on the household. But everybody has baking soda. Let's give this a quick stir. This is our potatoes. Okay, I'm gonna flip these, poke them over just like that. Perfect, and let them boil up, and then we'll put in our last little batch of these. And before we pop these in the oven, what we're gonna do is we'll do a quick egg wash on them, which is I'll take one egg and I'll beat it with a little bit of water and then brush them over, and that's just gonna give them a little shinier crust on it. Perfect. Now we'll pop these guys in. Perfect. And I don't ever put all of them in at one time because I think it would be hard to try to get them all out within a 30-second period, because you don't want to overboil them. If you overboil them, then you'll have a tougher skin on them, like a bagel. So go there, and I'm just gonna pop them over, make sure both sides get a good boil on. And this is what, the boil on it keeps the inside of it so moist, like the dough of the pretzel, like the inside, the bread, so moist and tender. They're just, these are like a favorite in our household. There we go. Pop all of these guys out. And they're gonna puff up quite a lot when we bake them in the oven. So I wanna make sure they're not too close to each other. Perfect. I'm gonna turn off my water over here. And since I'm done with it, I'm just gonna bring it to my sink and dump it out. Okay, now for our, I'm gonna get these, we'll let them sit for a second, then I'll do an egg wash on them. But I want to get my peppers.
What's the dough for the pretzels?
The dough is, it's just a simple dough. You take 1.5 cups of warm water, yeast, active dry yeast, a tablespoon of active dry yeast, and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. You let that, you mix it together, you let it foam until the yeast has bloomed for about 5 minutes. Then you're gonna add in 4 cups of bread flour, a tablespoon of salt, and 1/4 cup of melted butter. You knead that all together, and then you let it rise for about 1 to 2 hours in a nice warm spot. And voila, we have our lovely dough. I put a little bit of olive oil on these, and I'm gonna give them a good shake of garlic salt and black pepper. And then I'll give a hand toss. I'm gonna have these roasting in the oven with my pretzels. Perfect. Just making sure all of it gets coated nicely, and then I'm gonna spread it out so that it can roast. There, you wanna try not to have them on top of each other as much. There we go. So those will be ready to go in, but my hands are oily, so I'm gonna give them a quick wash. And then, what I'm going to do right now is I have my beef bourguignon cooking in the oven. So I'm gonna take it out and put it right here, and then I'm gonna turn my oven up to 450 degrees because that's what I want my pretzels to cook on. So I'm gonna take out my big pot of beef bourguignon. That's what we had prepping and making earlier. And this guy is a heavy pot. And here we go. I'll put him right here, and then I'm gonna set my oven to 450 degrees, and I'm gonna move my tray up. Okay. And the key is you wanna cook these on a high temperature. So I'm gonna bake at 450 degrees. We've got our potatoes boiling for our Parmesan mashed potatoes, which will also pop in the oven at 450. So let's make our egg wash to cover up our pretzels here. So all you need is 1 egg. We'll just put it in here. And then we're gonna add just a little bit of water, about a tablespoon. You don't need much, you just want enough to dilute it a little bit so that it spreads over nicely. And then you're just gonna beat it together. There we go. And essentially, the water just makes it, allows you to apply it smoothly and not in big globs. Otherwise, it will be too slimy and it won't spread on nice. And then you just take a basting brush or some, and you're just gonna wipe over each one just like this. And you're gonna coat it, and this is just gonna give it a nice golden shell when it bakes. Perfect. Just like this. Beautiful. And I'm just coating it, trying to cover all the top part of it with my egg wash. And I just want to move that guy a little bit farther away because they're gonna really rise in the oven. So they'll need at least ½ inch between them. There we go. And then we'll check on our potatoes and see if they're ready to come out and be smashed in just a second. Okay. I'm just gonna put this tray over here because I need to wait until my oven heats and I can get my green beans ready to go in the oven too when it heats. But while we're waiting, let's check out our potatoes. Let me grab a fork. I always know when my potatoes are ready when I can pull one up and it kind of smushes in my fork. Let's get a spoon. Let's see how they're going. I think they still need, they're still pretty firm. So we're gonna let them boil a little bit longer. Some of them are softer, but they still need probably 5 or so minutes. So we're gonna prep our mushrooms for our beef bourguignon. I'll need my frying pan. And I'm gonna slide my really big pot. I think I can get a trivet and put it on there because I need my burner. And I know they say you can put hot things on granite. I just never believe it. I've never trusted it. So I always use a trivet of some sort. Whew, he's heavy. Okay. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna chop up our mushrooms and we're gonna saute them up and we're gonna add them to our beef bourguignon in a little bit. But you can always cook them in with the stuff, but I just like doing the sauteing them up so they just are a little bit firmer than if you were to put them in there. They would turn to mush. If you were to just like kind of put them there, they'd be very tender. And so I just kind of like to chop them all in half and then I'll saute them with a little bit of oil and garlic salt and just cook them this way, and then I'll add them to my beef bourguignon at the very end. But sometimes you just get there and they won't be firm. They kind of get a little mushy, overcooked if you stew them for a really long time. This is a big guy, so I'm going to kind of fourth him. There we go. Oh, I hear my oven is beeping. That means we can pop those in just a second. So good, clean. They're really big. You can cut them into 4. So you don't want them to be too hard to fry. Just good like that. And the reason I'm not slicing them is because I think these look prettier in beef bourguignon when they're just like halved or quarter versus if I were to just do slice on them. Here we go. And this was about a pound of mushrooms. So we'll put a little bit of oil in my frying pan. And we'll turn it around one. We're gonna turn them up to about high. And we can put our pretzels in and our green beans in. Wrong hands. Perfect. And I have it, it's preheated to 450. I'm gonna put my pretzels on top and my green beans on the bottom, because my pretzels will be done first. And I want them to have the hot heat there. And I'm gonna set my timer to 7 minutes. And when it beeps, those will be done. Now we're gonna put our mushrooms in our oil that we have heating up. And we're gonna saute them up. And then we'll add them to our beef bourguignon. I'm not taking the lid off of it yet because I want the heat to stay in there. And we'll take that off in just a little bit. Get my tongs out. Which tongs do I want to use? These are a kitchen essential. If you don't have at least 2 or 3 pairs of tongs, you should get them. I use them almost for every meal I cook. I think they just work much better for stirring food. Like in a saute pan like this, you can just really like twist them around. Okay, I'm having those heat. I'm gonna give my potatoes a good stir. I think some of my ones on the bottom. Now I'm gonna poke them with a fork and see how they are. See if they are ready to be smashed. Ooh, I think they are just about. So I'm gonna get my tray ready for that. Let me clean up this workspace. And what I'm gonna do with that is I will drain them and then I'm gonna lay them out on a baking sheet with parchment paper, and then I'm just gonna smash them down, and then I'll pour a little bit of melted butter over them and garlic salt and some Parmesan cheese. There we go. Got my work spot cleaned up. Let's get a baking sheet out. And I put the parchment paper down because it just will make cleanup, especially with cheese. Cheese really gets stuck to your baking sheets, and it's a pain to clean. So I've got that down. And then I'll give these a little stir. I can hear them crackling. Come back here. And I'm just gonna let them heat until they start to sweat. And then I'll put a little bit of garlic salt on them. The salt will help them sweat some more, but I want them to start on their own before I help them. And now I'm just gonna get a colander out to drain my potatoes. Okay, this is heavy. I pour them into my colander. And you can use one of those ones that sits in your sink and dump it out. I just find that this guy is pretty easy to use. I'm gonna turn this off. I'll spread these out fairly even on our baking sheet. And I'm just gonna get a small pot out, throw it over my burner and put some butter in to melt while I smash these potatoes down. So I don't need much butter. Probably just gonna do like 1/3 of a stick. And I'm gonna turn this on and I'm gonna have it melt. And then what I'm gonna use is to smash these down. I'm gonna spread them out. They're gonna be hot. But again, I always say I'm very not sensitive with my fingers. So I'm gonna flip them all over because you're gonna want the good inside facing up so that the bottom can be nice and crispy. And then I find it is easy if you just take your pot that you boiled them in and you smush down like this. And you get a spatula to push them off. Oops, we lost the fork. And you see how they're just gonna be smushed and flattened. You could also put another piece of like parchment paper in between if you wanted to, but it's just easy just to scrape. But you just wanna smush them down like that. You could also use like a mug if you wanted to, but I already have to wash this pot, so it's just easier to use the same thing. And then smash. And the nice thing is these don't need to cook long in the oven. You just kind of put them in there to kind of crisp up because you've already boiled them, which makes them nice. There we go. So now we have them all smashed like that. Perfect. Throw this guy in my sink. I'm gonna flip over these guys because I really want the skins facing down because they'll crisp up on the parchment paper. Give this guy a quick smash. And you got my butter over here is melted. Perfect. And you could also just melt it in the microwave if you wanted. This is just right here. Let me give these a quick turn. Perfect. And then what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to try to slowly but evenly pour it over my potatoes. I'm trying to be even as possible. So just go slow and just kind of do it in little layers. Perfect. Nice and slow. That way this will help give it that nice flavor. And then we will sprinkle some garlic salt over. And let me grab some fresh Parmesan cheese or shaved Parmesan cheese out of my fridge. I'm going to stir my mushrooms. You can see if you look down on here, they're really starting to get nice and tender, which is what we want. Let me see. So I'm going to use some shaved Parmesan cheese. I really like the shaved because it comes in really nice flakes, but you can do the shredded or the finely ground if you want. Try to avoid the one that you buy in like the plastic tube. That one doesn't give you the nice melt on it. So, and just sprinkle a nice layer over, just like this. And cover it. And this is gonna give it that, you'll have the butter, the garlic, salt, and the Parmesan cheese will be there. And it sounds like our pretzels might be ready. So we can pop this tray in the oven when we take our pretzels out. So I'm gonna bring it over here. And we're gonna grab our pretzels out. Let me get a trivet to put them on. We can look at them. There we go. They've got a nice golden brown hue to them. I might actually want to leave these in for one more minute. I want all of mine to look like these back ones. So I think they need one more minute in here, which is fine. We can start on our mushrooms and we'll be back over to check on them in 1 minute. You want to make sure they have that golden brown on it. I think my oven had just preheated to 450. A lot of times I have it preheating for a while and then they cooked a lot faster. So now we have our mushrooms, they're softening up. I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic salt on these just to have them wilt out more. And I wait till the very end to do this because I find you can get your seasonings to burn on the bottom of the pan, and the salt already helps them let out their juices, and I wanted them to kind of get a nice golden crust on them. So I'll soften this. I'm going to pick up this guy. I'm going to get my pot holder because he is still really, really hot. Get that fork back up. The Dutch ovens, what's nice about them is they keep their heat. So even though I could have taken this out of the oven like an hour ago and it would still be really hot. It's made out of cast iron. So let's go check on our pretzels and then we'll add our mushrooms in just a second. And we'll be done with dinner in a few minutes. Perfect. Now they've got that golden color that I wanted. I can already see. Look at these guys. They've got that nice golden color that I want. I'll put them right over here, and then I'm going to pop my Parmesan potatoes in the oven, and I'm just going to switch my settings from bake over to air fry, because air fry will help it heat a little bit faster. So I'm gonna go from, instead of baking, I'm gonna use my air fry setting, which will blow the air out even faster and cook it at a higher temperature faster. So I have that cooking at 425 air fry. Now, let's get these pretzels going. Where did I put my butter? Here it is. While your pretzels are hot, just take a little bit of this butter soft, and you're just gonna cover it nicely. And this is what's gonna help the pretzel salt stick. I'm gonna cover each one. There. So just using the softened butter right here. And you could always melt and brush it on, but I find that this works just as easy. We'll go through, we'll cover it nicely with the softened butter, and then I'm gonna go through with my pretzel salt. And I'm just gonna sprinkle in some of my pretzel salt. Pretzel salt is different than regular salt or coarse salt. It's like dehydrated, it's like mixed with water and then dehydrate it, so it's not as salty per flake. So you really don't want to use like a coarse salt, sea salt on it. That would just be really, really, really salty.
Another request to go through what your pretzel dough is.
My pretzel dough, I take 1.5 cups of warm water and a tablespoon of yeast and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and I mix those together and I let the yeast bloom for about 5 or so minutes until it's nice and foamy. And then using a dough hook on my stand mixer, I mix in 4 cups of bread flour, a tablespoon of salt, and 1/4 cup of melted butter. And you mix all of those together, knead them up in your dough hook. Then I kind of do a quick knead in a bowl. I coat it with a little bit of oil and I proof it in my oven, or you could just do it in a nice warm spot in your house for 1 to 2 hours until it's doubled in size. And then you just roll out into, these are kind of like pretzel rolls versus a traditional pretzel steak. You roll them out, and then you have boiling water with about 1/4 cup of baking soda in it, and you drop your pretzel rolls in it for about 30 seconds, and then you do an egg wash and pop them in the oven.
Again, a few questions on it. The step-by-step videos we post in long form format. Just go to our profile page and follow the link through. We post all the cooking videos with step-by-step. If you guys have questions, those are always good tutorials to go through.
Okay, so I've got my mushrooms right here. You can see my Beef Bourguignon. It has a nice thick gravy with it. And we're just gonna pour these mushrooms in and mix it around. Perfect, I'll mix that in just a second. Perfect. And look at that. And that's the one thing that's beautiful about this, is it has just a nice rich gravy. For those of you who weren't with us when we prepped it in the beginning, we did this about 2.5 hours ago, or I guess we did it around 3:30. But we sauteed about 1/2 pound of bacon in there and crisped it up. Then I seared off my chuck roast that I cut into chunks. And then once there, I took them out, and then with the drippings in the pot, I added 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, 2 cups of red wine, 2 cups of beef bouillon, or water with beef bouillon. I sauteed up 1 onion, a couple of carrots, and added in thyme, about 1 tablespoon of thyme, 3 bay leaves, and I'm trying to think, some garlic, and some fresh parsley. And I sauteed all of those up, added a little bit of flour. Then we put our meat back in and we baked it at 350 for about 2.5 hours. And now we just added in our sauteed mushrooms. And I'm gonna pull out our green beans, and our potatoes should be ready to come out in just a second, and then I can serve up. But you can come look at our potato. The cheese is melting nicely on these Parmesan potatoes. The best thing about these potatoes is the second part is just crisping it up. So we've got our roasted green beans with onions. And we kind of tossed them in olive oil with garlic, salt, and pepper. And what I'm gonna use is just a tong to kind of turn them real quick. These are my favorite way to do green beans. I just absolutely love them. I think the onions pair so nicely. Perfect. And we can start, I'll plate up a plate, and then our Parmesan potatoes will be ready to come out in just a second. So I'm gonna put this over here. And I'll get a plate out, and I am going to plate up how we will eat it. So, you're gonna wanna get a nice chunk of meat. And it's really, you can see how tender it is, how soft. I'm just breaking it apart with my tongs. And you're gonna want some carrots in there and some mushrooms, beautiful. And then we'll have some roasted green beans. There. Of course, pretzel roll. And let's go grab those potatoes out of the oven. They should be all ready. I'm gonna go to the trivet right here. Protect my countertop. And I'm gonna go grab those Parmesan crusted potatoes.
And you got a comment that it's impressive. You got everything coming together all at one time. It's like years of experience.
Years of experience. It does. It takes time. You learn how long things take. And although my oldest daughter likes to tell me I'm time blind because I'll be like, dinner's at this time. And it's not. Okay, and we're just gonna do a nice serving. You see how the cheese is melted on there? Nicely. Perfect. And that is dinner. You know what? Thank you guys for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do lots of home cooked meals. Essentially what we eat, I cook for you guys. And I try to do the walkthrough steps and the basic cooking of it because I find that the art of cooking is kind of lost right now. And so I want to teach you this, but just the basic steps. You might already know them, but I might teach you something that's different than you've done. And you know what I mean? It's just, I enjoy cooking a lot and I enjoy trying to teach people how to cook. I think that goes back to my degrees in teaching. You can always check out my videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We have them on some other platforms. I have a link in my profile that has the full videos there. But thanks for joining us again. Bye.